The Jacksonville Jaguars continue to make tough but good decisions. They have released Gabe Davis. We will talk about that and more here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is a fact. It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast, and we're free to subscribe. Make sure you tap in wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And shout out to the everydayers for joining us every day. And if it's your first time, I hope you enjoy the show. All right, Trent did it again. And what we mean by Trent did it again is not that he made a signing that did not work out. It's that he overpaid and structured the contract to the point where it's to the detriment of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm going to talk about it because it's all about wide receiver Gabe Davis, who is no longer a Jaguar. Why did it happen and what it means? We'll discuss that right smack in the middle. But we'll get you started with the news of the day, and that is that Gabe Davis was cut after one season with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm going to tell you how significant the money that was paid to Gabe. Gabe got $24 million guaranteed, okay? He's going to get it all. And I think he had 239 yards catching, 20 passes, 239 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 10 games. I was not someone when they signed Gabe Davis that was angry about it. Let's just be clear and let me be very, very, transparent when it comes to that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that contrary to what some of y'all think, and there are people out there that think that I'm always angling myself to be right, and I don't do that, but folks that believe that going to believe it because they want to believe it. But I was not against this move. I was against how much money they gave him, but I wasn't against the move itself because I had seen Gabe Davis play in big games for Buffalo, and he did something with the Bills that I thought he would be able to do with the Jaguars, and that is catch passes in the middle of the field like he did, especially in those big games against the Chiefs, big games against the Bengals. It never really materialized. When I got to camp, Gabe Davis was slower than I thought he was, right? And I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out. Is this going to be a Marvin Jones Sr. type situation? I just did not see it. So I started to maybe blame it on how he was being used, falling in line with the Peterson and the Press Taylor. And then something happened. The thing that happened was Matt Collins then went to Buffalo and became a better version of Gabe Davis than Gabe Davis was when he was with Buffalo. And it made me go back and started thinking, why was he a free agent when Buffalo needed a wide receiver? Remember, they signed Matt Collins. They drafted Cohen. This year, again, Brandon Beane, the GM, was going off about people thinking they still needed receivers, even though Shakir, they signed him to a whole bunch of money, a big contract, and Josh Allen won the MVP, and people are still saying they need receivers. So a team that folks thinks need receivers still thought needed receivers last year allowed Gabe Davis to go into the free agent market and say, no, we ain't going to pay you. So now questions have gotten answered. Mitch Morse, former Buffalo Bill, who was also here for 1 year with Gabe Davis, has put out a tweet saying that Gabe Davis was a strong locker room presence, that he played hurt last year. And he says, well, I don't really understand this one. He says it's a bit of a head scratcher, I guess. Ain't no head scratcher to me because I told you when they gave Diami Brown $10 million and Brian Thomas Jr. had already emerged as one of the 7 or 8 best receivers in the league, and he's not number 8. He is number 7. So I'm going to keep saying that. I think that's pretty clever. But when they did that and then they made the move to draft Travis Hunter, I said, they ain't got no need for no Gabe Davis. Even before they had Travis Hunter, when I sat in the pre-draft press conference and Liam Cohen mentioned 3 receivers. Brian Thomas Jr., Diami Brown, Parker Washington. Gabe Davis wasn't nowhere to be found. I said yesterday on yesterday's show, it's funny how you go into these situations and the guy that's not being mentioned is the dude that actually makes more money than anybody in that position group, and how you have to be able to handle that. There's some things that you got to deal with when you deal with stuff like that. This is the NFL. It ain't all about, it's all about the money, but then once a guy gets his money, a dude also is playing for dignity and respect, and he wants, if the more he sat on the sideline, even if he didn't sulk, people were going to be saying Gabe Davis is a waste of space. They're just paying it for nothing. More teams need to do this. Figure out a way how to move on from somebody, even if it means they're going to leave here with a pocket full of cash that they never earned. At some point, they had to make everybody realize this is what this is, man. And they did save a little money. They made it a June 1st designation. I'll read from Mike DeRocco, my man D-Rock, who does a fabulous job, known him for about 20 years. Mike says on the ESPN website, where he writes for, the Jaguars released Gabe Davis on Wednesday morning, nearly 14 months after signing a wide receiver to a 3-year contract worth $39 million. The Jaguars are designating Davis as a post-June 1st release, meaning they will absorb a $5.7 million dead cap hit rather than the $20.3 million dead cap hit had they not made that a June 1st designation. However, by making it a June 1st designation, the Jaguars won't see the $794,000 in cap savings until June 1st. So when you make somebody a June 1st designation, yeah, you're going to save the cap space, but you're not going to save it immediately, which means they're not going to be able to use it. I don't think the Jaguars are sitting here doing this because they wanted to try to hurry up and use $794,000 on a minimum player. I do think they did it because Gabe Davis is going to be around here and they ain't got no use for him. None whatsoever. I asked yesterday, would it be a depth situation? Well, Parker Washington's wide receiver 4. Who's wide receiver 5? Josh Cephas? Is it another? Are they going to keep 6? What are they going to do? We'll talk about that in a second. But for right now, Gabe Davis is out here, man. He's gone. And it's one of those things that when they took over, I told you is questions to ask yourself. How much do they like Gabe Davis? Remember I said that? Somebody put it on Twitter this morning about 5 questions I told them to ask, and they've gotten those answers. You have now gotten your answers. Isn't it funny when you really put questions out there and say, I'm going to see. That's I'm going to see for those that don't understand how we discuss things here in the barbershop. But I'm going to see. This is why I do shows the way that I do them. I had somebody criticize me. They say, you say this today and then you say that tomorrow. No, I say the possibility of this today and the possibility of that tomorrow. And on the next day, I might give you the probability that it might happen. And then the next day, I'll tell you what happens if it doesn't happen. And then when something does happen, I'll say, this is what happened and this is why. We put ourselves through the mental gymnastics sometimes of trying to be right as opposed to trying to map things out. And then when one of those things happens, it gives you an idea of the thinking and the boldness, in this case, of a team like Jacksonville. Somebody had to go tell Shad that dude's going to leave here with $24 million and he ain't caught but 20 passes. But it's best that he goes. We don't need him around here this year. Not saying Gabe was going to act up. Not saying Gabe didn't ask them for his release. And it was mutually agreed upon that it's best for him to play somewhere else, but he wasn't going to fudge on the money, or maybe his agent probably did that. Look, y'all ain't got no use for him, man. Let him go somewhere else and play. I don't believe this is an offset money situation. I believe whatever he gets, he's going to keep it on top of what he made here with the Jaguars. That's what I believe. I'm going to talk about the team ramifications for it. Thank you, Gabe. Take care. At the top of the segment, I'm going to tell you something somebody used to tweet to me about Gabe Davis too, but I never really put it on him and anybody in his camp. But folks got mad at me when I said the Jaguars weren't going to have any need for Gabe Davis. I'm going to tell you why they didn't have need for him. I'm going to tell you why it wasn't a fit with this particular regime. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored, brought to you by Skylight Calendar. Look, man, y'all need to say goodbye to sticky notes. Yeah, I got some sitting right here and all of that stuff and scribbled plans on the fridge and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders, all in one easy and safe place. You're juggling things like me. For a long time, I had 3 jobs, 5 kids, and 2 businesses. That's a lot. So what you really need to do is have something available to you right on hand that can help you stay organized. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's Skylight. I'll spell it SKYLIGHTCAL.com/NFL. All right, rolling along here. Locked on NFL, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Locked on Jaguars. That's right. I said locked on NFL. That's what happens when you do more than one show. Stuff just kind of rolls off your tongue, even when you don't want it to. News of the day, Gabe Davis cut after 1 season with the Jaguars, 0 on a return of investment. Talk about Trent Balky and the way he structured that deal in just a second. God, I know y'all glad we offer that, aren't you? Aren't y'all glad we just don't have to deal with that stuff like that no more? I mean, at the very least, when the Jaguars signed Diami Brown, they came out and flat out told you why they did it. Look at the last 5 games. Look what he was able to do once they got a competent quarterback. You see, they didn't say that, but I'm going to tell you that's what it is. Diami Brown lived up to his potential once they got Jaden Daniels. And he earned their trust at the end of the year. Probably priced himself out. Washington probably wanted him to stop performing so well because that's why he was able to get $10 million on a prove-it deal, right? It's like that Dante Moncrief signing years ago. He got like a $10 million. He got it from the Jaguars. Then he went somewhere else and got it when he left the Colts. It didn't pan out for him, but I think it's going to work out for Diami Brown. They're a 3-headed monster at wide receiver. Gabe Davis doesn't have to be worried about it anymore. This is starting to now get streamlined here in Jacksonville where you know who the people are going to touch the ball are. I didn't think Gabe was going to do much anyway, but there was always the thought that if he's making that much money, they're going to try to get some kind of use out of him. Well, guess what? No, they're not. He is out. In fairness to Gabe Davis, I think Gabe can help somebody. He could be a good 3rd or 4th receiver in this league for a team that is desperate for wide receivers. Maybe go to Pittsburgh now, right? Pittsburgh traded George Pickens to Dallas. And Gabe's got a pocket full of money now, so maybe he'll go to Miami. Maybe he'll be their big receiving option because they need one too. And they'll probably pay him a league minimum because he got a fat pocket from Jacksonville because of Trent Balky, and we'll talk about that soon. But what it means for Jacksonville, it means this. When they went out and got Diami Brown, they told you about his speed and his ability to make plays. And Tony Baselli, the day or two before the draft, said they're expecting big things out of Diami Brown. And you sitting there thinking, okay, they got Brian Thomas Jr. They're probably going to draft a receiver in the draft at some point, not realizing they were going to trade up and get Travis Hunter. Now that they have all 3 of those guys, I've spent a lot of time talking about the speed factor, right? When they go to 2 wide receivers, if Travis is tired, he won't be there. Diami will. If Travis is not tired, which I've heard he never gets tired, he'll be on the field with Brian Thomas Jr. in 2 wide receiver sets, right? That's some weaponry. That is some firepower. Apparently, the offensive line is going to be a little bit better off. They have more tight ends that do tight end things that don't necessarily tell you that it's a pass. So that makes the linebackers and the safeties have to keep themselves in due bounds with what they see and not start guessing on plays. This starts to streamline what the Jaguars are going to be. They're multiple. But now it takes some of that emphasis on who that high-paid 4th wide receiver is going to be. It kind of tells you now that when they were, some people were thinking about this team, like, well, who are the people they're going to be throwing to? How are you going to divvy up You know, you got all these receivers. You got this guy, you got that guy. And not so much this year with the new regime, but last year. Jaguar fans didn't want to cut anyone. They didn't want to cut Christian Kirk. They didn't want to cut Gabe Davis. Well, I wouldn't say a whole bunch of people weren't saying cut Gabe Davis, but people were making excuses for it. But they didn't want to cut Christian Kirk. They were angry. They definitely didn't want to get rid of Evan Ingram. Between Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, and Gabe Davis, you were looking at about 47 to $50 million. Ain't none of those dudes good enough to be the three people responsible for that kind of money coming off your books. One, they ain't healthy ever. But two, even when they are, there's drops, and Ingram is a one-trick pony. So now you get a new regime in here. Diami Brown, along with Travis Hunter, to go with Brian Thomas Jr., who was drafted by Trent Balky, and I'll give him credit for that. But you see, this is how you weaponize people. What's Travis going to cost? $10 million? What's Diami going to cost? $10 million? It's $20 million. And Travis is going to be playing two positions. What they pay for those tight ends? About $3 or $4 million, combined, or $5 million if you combine it. So what are you talking about? You're talking about $25 million. That's half the money for better players than the Jaguars had here. Once again, what in the hell was going on? I don't mind that they don't have 4 and 5 different people that they're going to have to give the ball to. Remember last year, Duvernay. Remember coming out of the Miami game and they threw the ball to Parker Washington and gave it to Tank Bigsby. 2 guys that are still on the team, but they weren't the starters. And I said, what are they doing? Well, now, you know what? It's Brian Thomas Jr., it's Etienne or whoever the running back is. It's Travis Hunter. This is where we are intentionally going to put that pressure on you. We're using them. Not slow wide receivers, not small wide receivers who can't stay healthy, not oversized wide receivers, but small tight ends that can't block, that when they're in a game, they sell you on everything that we're about to do. No, man, we're about to run this thing totally differently. You're about to see some fresh bodies, some fresh legs. The people we're throwing the ball to are the best and most dynamic players on the team. And that's the way it's supposed to be. So what does it mean for the Jaguars? It means short term, it means that they got better. They got more explosive and more dynamic. They trimmed a lot of fat. I'm going to tell you long term what it means. And this ain't even about what's on the field. This is about the people putting the product on the field. I'll do that for you in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Man, the NBA playoffs in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. You got teams up now that people didn't even think were going to be up in these series. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy in the game, before tip-off, and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I'm telling you, man, this is the series, especially early, to take these road teams in game one, because they're playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and these home teams, sometimes they play really, really tight. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first bet for $5. Place your first $5 bet. If that bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. That is not a joke. It is the truth. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Moving along now, the third and final segment of Locked On Jaguars. News of the day, the Jaguars released. They did relieve themselves. They released wide receiver Gabe Davis, who I expect someone else to snatch up. Let him clear waivers, and then they'll grab him up, and he'll be a part of somebody's camp, and we wish him the best. I don't know if because Gabe is I live in North Jacksonville, and Gabe is from the town that's 5 miles away from me. I don't know if it was a family member or whatever, but I know somebody used to get really, really angry at me and tell me he wasn't going to get cut. And this isn't personal. I think I may have spoken to Gabe Davis once or twice, head nod type stuff. This is just when it comes to the team, it's the nature of the business. And I was like, this doesn't seem like it's going to be right. And then if you get new people in here, and Gabe made all that money last year and didn't perform, Mitch Morse was just okay. It's the same with Ronald Darby, and it's the same with they aren't married to any of those things. They aren't married to bad contracts. I know the hardest thing about this was to tell Shad, you just got to take a $24 million haircut and not ever get anything back because they don't like that. But I'm probably certain along with that, they said he might as well keep the money. We ain't going to use him. He's just not in our plans. And having him here could be a little bit more of a detriment than anything. And it's not saying that Gabe is going to cut up, but the fans would have talked about it. They would have had to answer questions about it, all of these things. And it's just not something that is ideal to them, having an idea, a clear picture of where they want to go moving forward. They got to this situation because Trent Balky gave that dude too much money. He should have signed up. I'd have been better. I'd have felt better had Washington, considering what Diami is coming off of, if they gave him a 3-year deal. But they didn't. They gave him a 1-year deal, $10 million. They said, we like you. $10 million shows you we like you. But you got to prove it some more. Show us that our belief in you is warranted, and we'll take care of you. And they could probably do that halfway through the season or at the end of this year. Keep him from being a free agent, especially if this thing goes the way you want it to, or it goes the way you want it to, and then Parker Washington's out there saying, you can keep me, and it's cheaper. You don't have to pay me $10 million. So there's a lot of things that gives the Jaguars a chance here for a look-see. But what's important is this. So shout out to his family, whoever that was. Maybe they was just somebody who's a Gabe Davis fan. They were doing that. It's not personal. Everybody who knows me knows that. All right. Trent Balky. It's not so much about him and what he did, because then that would put us back into reliving trauma. I don't want to do that. I will say this, though, what they have done, the new people, whether it be Gladstone, Baselli, Cohen, or a combination of all of them, they have shown, not just through the things that they have done in acquiring players, in how they discuss business, in the move to go up and get Travis, in the 5 moves that it took, or the 4 in free agency and the 1 in the draft, for them to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to throw a bunch of bodies, competent bodies, at the offensive line. We're going to try to coach those young 2 tackles up. Put competent bodies in competition. We're not just going to sit here and go, okay, I had saw what Mitchell Schwartz, who used to play for the Chiefs, said the Chiefs didn't need an offensive tackle. They just needed to develop the 2 young guys they already had. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, the 2 guys they already had didn't even take the training wheels off last year. And you got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and you still got, one of the greatest tight ends ever. And y'all just got blown out in the Super Bowl because they couldn't block anybody. And you're sitting there saying that they shouldn't throw more bodies, yet more bodies at the offensive line. I thought that was weird. And it's something I disagree with. I agree with how the Jaguars did it. They threw resources to block Trevor. So, yeah, we can upgrade how we play, but we're also going to make sure that we have enough people to protect our quarterback so he can upgrade how he plays, which will upgrade the whole team. They're bold, man. Like I said, most people don't cut guys that they've given all that money who haven't done anything, because they want some kind of return on investment. They realized they weren't going to get it, and they were able to articulate that to Shad Khan, obviously, and they moved on it. And this is something else. There's some people that might have been scared to go in there and tell Shad that, but they probably weren't, because it wasn't a dude that they signed in the first place. The fat is getting trimmed around here. Shout out to my doctor for giving me credit for losing 7 pounds also. But the fat is getting trimmed here in Jacksonville. Are you intangibly rich? Can you help us just by being nothing more than who you are? If they like speed at receiver, Gabe Davis wasn't going to help him because he's slow. If he wanted to have the attempts or the receptions or the targets that was going to line up with his salary, that wasn't going to happen either. Experience is important. Having guys who have played and caught balls before is important. And that's the approach of those old school GMs. And I understand it because I believe in that a little bit too. But that can't take the place of going out and getting guys that's not safe. You're going to go out and do that. Oh, man, we're going to line these fast dudes up against your fast dudes. And we're going to draft these guys to be special, not just things that can keep us in a nice, safe, competitive place and still not win, but have enough juice to win 9 games and make people think we're okay just because the Jaguars have a history of not putting back-to-back winning seasons together. No, man, that stuff is over with. Not saying that every move that they're going to make is going to hit. Not saying that I was angry when they signed Gabe Davis. I thought it was too much money. I'm not going to lie to you. I was surprised because normally agents know what a guy's value is, and I was shocked his value was that high. And I was even more shocked when I started hearing people around the league say, why the hell they gave Gabe Davis all that money? They got away with it with Christian Kirk, and he actually was something that did actually help him. They paid Zay. Didn't they pay Zay Jones more money than anybody ever paid Zay Jones? Guys have gotten, you got Zay Jones, you got Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and Gabe Davis have come here and had their life. They've changed their generations of their families, considering they're going to use the money correctly. And it's all because of the Jaguars, and they didn't give the Jaguars a whole bunch for it. Zay and Kirk and Ingram, okay, they were part of teams that went to playoffs. That's not what you paid them for. Total money was like $39 million for one guy, 30 some odd million for another dude, and it's like that's 70 already, right? And then 72 for another. It's like 140 some odd million dollars. What did you get? What you got was a Trent Balky hangover. And now I know all of y'all are mad or happy that it's Arrivederci. And now you're going to get real talent evaluators in here that's going to pay guys what they're supposed to get, but exactly what they're supposed to get, not overpay them. And they understand exactly what these guys are going to be doing. Like I say, it hasn't worked. We have to watch it. But kudos to the new staff for doing something else again. I didn't think they were going to do it because people don't like paying people when they ain't earning their money. Turns out he probably wasn't going to earn it anyway. You guys, thank you for joining me here on Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you tap into Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino, because they'll break this down. Joe Marino, in fact, probably has a lot to say about Gabe Davis because he covers the Bills. He'll tell you whether he was worth the money or not. Go check that out. Locked On NFL Scouting, and make it your second listen. We'll see you tomorrow, man, as we head up to mini camp. It starts this weekend on Saturday. I have to bury my uncle on Saturday, and I won't be there because normally I would give you a report. But I encourage you to follow all of the other local Jaguar members of the media who can give you all of that. But leading up to it, I'll tell you everything, and then come back Monday, I'll tell you exactly what I heard. We'll do that on Locked On Jaguars because it's your team every day. Thank you for spending 29 minutes with me today. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.